everybody, welcome back to Knowledge Work Nexus. I am Kara, and today we are going to be continuing with our Vault Rebuild series. In today's video, I am going to show you some, I think, pretty cool customizations that I'm going to make to Readwise. Readwise, if you're not familiar with it, is a tool that allows you to highlight things like books and articles and save tweets and all sorts of other things. And then it aggregates them all together and you can feed them over to your favorite tools for thought. In my case, Obsidian. So I'm going to go through quite a few customizations to this, and I want to give a huge shout out as I start this video to TfTHacker. A couple of the customizations I'm going to do are directly from a couple of articles that I will link to in the description that TfTHacker wrote. And I was encouraged just to start playing around with the concept of what else could I do with my Readwise feed because of those two articles. So huge shout out to TfTHacker. Thank you very much. And as always, I do have an article that walks through this step by step to accompany this video. So you'll find that in the description below as well. So with all of that, I think we're ready to dive in. Let's head to the computer. Hey everybody, we are here in the new Extended Mind 1.0 Vault that I've been creating with you in this Vault Rebuild series. If you're interested in seeing why I'm doing this, I'll put a card above my head. There are a few things hiding underneath some of these folders because I have been using this vault quite a bit, but you can see my new folder structure that we set up in the last video. And again, I'll link to a card with that one above my head as well, so that you can see that. Today, we're going to start bringing in additional content into our vault, specifically from Readwise. And so we're going to install the Readwise plugin, make quite a few customizations to the settings for how Readwise is going to come into our vault, and then I'll show you what that looks like once it's all done. So we're going to come down here to Settings, and we're going to go to Community Plugins, and we're going to Browse. And when you type in Readwise, you'll see there are two different versions. There's a community plugin. This one was created before the Readwise official plugin was created and ready. Now Readwise actually has their own plugin that they maintain, so that's the official one. So we're going to click on that, and we're going to install it. As soon as it installs, we can click Enable, and then we're ready to go over to the options. Now, a word of warning, I guess. I have done a lot of testing of all of the setting changes that I'm making in my Readwise template that I'm about to show you in an empty vault. So if you're going to try to make changes, even my changes, I would recommend doing that in an empty vault first. Make sure it looks and functions the way you want it to, and then bring it into your final vault. So it's just always a good idea when you're playing with something new to try it out in an empty vault, and then you can always bring it into your existing vault. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to click Connect, and that's going to open up a web browser page, and it's going to take me directly to the Readwise service and to the export preferences. Okay, so here we go. And when I come down here, you'll see that this is just the base Readwise functionality. If for some reason you ever want to get back to just this functionality, you can always use these little reset boxes here. That's actually what I've done to reset mine back to the base functionality. And so that will always bring you back. We're going to make quite a few customizations here. So I'm going to first of all turn on Use Custom File Name. And I have saved all of my settings in a notepad document that I'll be pulling up occasionally as we're going through this. And I'll make this available to download, and so you can find that in the description below. So we've turned on the option for custom file name. We're going to copy and paste this and replace what is in that box with that text. So what this does is it's still going to give us the title. It's going to replace any hashtags with just an empty space. That way I don't have any weird extra tags in my vault. And then it's going to add by author and the word highlight. So this will now be the file name for any of my files. The next thing that we're going to do, whoops, wrong document. There we go. The next thing that we're going to do, custom formatting was already on, so I didn't have to do anything with that. And I'm going to give the page title is actually now going to be the full title. So this is like if Dan Charnas's book, which is Everything in Its Place, I think is the official working title now. It has a bunch of things after there's like a colon and then a whole bunch of other stuff. So what that would put all of this on this first line of my note. Again, if you don't like that, just put in title here instead of full title. Your choice. You can use any of these variables here to play around with that. The next thing is our page metadata. This is where I am making the most changes to the Readwise feed because I want to bring over quite a bit of different metadata. I want to bring it over formatted in a much different way. And then because this is also the top of my page, I also want to add a data view query because essentially what I'm creating here is the template for all of my Readwise pages. And I want to use a data view query. And I do already have the data view plugin installed in my Vault. If you don't have that, you can either just omit this little data view query that I'll show you, or you can install the data view plugin to use it. So let me pull up my notepad document here, and we're going to come down here, and we're going to this all the way down to here. And I'm going to come over here and do the same thing. There we go. So let me talk you through all of the changes that I've just made. First of all, we're still leaving the image of the book there at the top of the page, but then we're coming down and we are creating a call out. So this little right pointing arrow with the single bracket, the exclamation mark, and then whatever word here. I'm using a note call out. You can use different call out formats if you look at the Obsidian documentation. And then I have a little dash right after it. That dash will fold up the call out so that it appears closed. So you won't actually see any of this information when you open the page first. You'll have to click the call out to open it, and then all of this information will be under it. And then I've given this call out a name. It's Readwise information, so that'll appear on the header. The author's name I've put into page brackets so that I can create a page by the author if I want to do so and add additional information about that author. The title, I'm just using the full title here again, so this will be the same thing that is up here in our page title. Under type, I've actually made a few changes here. I have added a hashtag Readwise / the word category, and then the actual category from Readwise. So whether it's a book, a podcast, a tweet, an article, whatever that'll get filled in by this variable over here. So this happens to be a book that they're using as the example. Okay. Then the last highlighted date, this will show me the last date that I highlighted that book. The only thing I'm not sure is if this updates as I read books. I've been testing these changes so many times over the last few days. I'm not sure if it'll change as that date changes, but it gives me a more accurate date of when I read the book, which I think is more important to me than just when I synced it. Then it's going to create a link directly to this page's page in my Readwise archive. And the way you do that is by using the little code https://readwise.io/book-review/ and then this book ID. Now I will say this actually should work if you used, where is it? URL/book-review/book ID, but it is not working for some reason. So I'm just working around it by typing in the source or typing in the text there. Then I've also added the source where it came from. So if it's a website, if it's a article, if it's a book, if it's a manual scan using the Readwise app on my phone, all of those get added with a hashtag source and then the source ID. And then I've added 3 more fields here. This related to, this tags, and review for repurpose. These are 3 things that I use in my Vault regularly so that I can link notes together. Tags are my actual tags that apply to my Vault. And then review for repurpose is something that I use in my writer's workshop that I'll show you how I'm building out in a future article. And then the document references, this is my word for the Readwise document tags. And so you'll see here that if there is a document tag, then that will get added here. It will get added here as a page instead of as a tag. So this is a good place for me to show you. If you don't like this and you want these to actually be tags, just take out these page brackets and put in a hashtag right here. And then you'll see they're going to come over as tags instead of pages. I don't want that. I want them to come over as pages. And so I just need to change that text. And then notice that the document references here on the left it has the little marker in front of it, but this code that says, hey, if there's a document tag, then add document references and then end. But if not, then don't, basically, is what it's saying. Those don't get those little carets. You only put it on the attribute that will get printed if there is a tag, or in this case, a URL. So if there's a URL that links to like the original source for that link, then you can put that in here as well. And then as we keep going, I've added 3 dashes that'll put a horizontal line across my vault. And then I've used a level 2 header, and this will bring in linked notes from around my vault. And this is a super simple data view query that just lists anything that links to this page. And so it's the 3 back ticks that are up on my keyboard. I have a standard Windows machine up to the left of the 1 key on my keyboard. So 3 ticks, the word data view. That's how you start in a data view query. On a new line, I'm going to use the list data view type. And then I'm just going to say from. So where do you want me to find this stuff from, basically? I want you to find anything where, and then where this comes from, this page name, is, whoops, I didn't mean to scroll there. I meant to scroll up here, is this text right here, the file name, in a set of brackets so that it's linking to that page. And you can see what that looks like over here on the right in the preview. So there's the data view query that will come in. And then I put in another horizontal row. So super, not too complicated, but if you've never used data view, that may look a little wacky to you, but you can, and you could put in a whole different query if you wanted to. So if you're like, oh, that's a good idea and I want to put in other queries, go for it. You could put in multiple queries here. So just remember that what you're doing when you're setting all this up is you're essentially creating the page template for all of your Readwise pages. So then the highlights header, I think the only thing that I made a change here on from the default is that I added the date format is in a little bit different format. Oh, and we have to change that. Whoopsie. Let's go grab that. So this is the original, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab, there we go. Like that didn't look right. I'm going to add this new date format. So I put the date into brackets, and then it'll link to an actual daily notes page in my Readwise vault. So that was the change that was made. And you can see that right here. You can see what that looks like. Okay. And then for the highlights, I want to give a shout out here to TfTHacker. There are 2 articles that TfTHacker wrote about how they've customized their Readwise feeds. That is what inspired me to start doing all of this work and to sort of figure out, okay, what do I really want in my Readwise template? And so I have a huge admiration for this because I don't know that I would have figured this one out on my own. But we're going to add an absolute reference back to the specific highlight ID. And this is a unique identifier for every highlight, or for every highlight in your Readwise vault. Okay. And it will take you straight back to that Readwise ID. And I think it's actually easier to see right over here. So right here, you'll see this sort of funky little arrow, the little up arrow indicating a block reference indicator that has this number. That is the Readwise unique identifier for this item. It also is going to link me back to, in the text, this specific item. So much like up here in our page metadata, we're linking back to the full page for that entire book. Down here, we're linking to the page where just that specific reference is. So it will link you to just that specific reference in Readwise. So if you wanted to go maybe change your note, or you wanted to do something else to it, you could do that just by using that link. The other nice thing about this, and I'll show you this when we actually do the import into our vault, is that this will make sure that if you ever need to delete your whole Readwise feed again and then redo it, like I've done about 50 times in my vault as I've been testing this, as long as you're using these block reference IDs, they're stable, they don't change. And so any cards that you have or notes that you have that relate back to it, as long as you've used that, you can sort of delete and re-add your Readwise sync as many times as you need to. If you want to come in here and make more changes to this or something like that, and you just want to resync the whole vault, you can do that. It's not a big deal because all of those notes will still be stable as long as you do that. The last change that I'm going to make before we do our initial sync is I'm going to add a piece of YAML Frontmatter. Now, whether you use YAML Frontmatter or you use attributes like I have been using is mostly a personal preference issue. And I'll show you what that looks like here. So right there, you'll see that the 3 dashes got added for the YAML Frontmatter, the alias, and another set of 3 dashes before the page starts. The reason that I put the alias in Frontmatter is because that's the only place it works. Alias doesn't work if you use it as an attribute. At least I don't think it does. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. And I just prefer the attributes nested in that little call out. But there are some plugins. So if you're using like I think the Notion Tables plugin, it requires YAML Frontmatter. It doesn't read from attributes. So you could make some of these changes here in the YAML instead of in the page like I've done. Or you could do them both because it's all feeding over automatically from Readwise if you wanted to. So you've got a lot of options there for how you customize that. The sync notification box we are going to leave empty for this first sync. And that's basically because I just don't want a page created that has essentially a link to today's note to every single page that we're going to have in our vault, because we're going to customize this quite a lot when we do this and add a note to that date, to that daily note. So I just don't want that, so I'm not going to run the sync notification. It has failed a couple of times if I forgot to take it out too, so I don't know if that would cause it to fail for you, but just as an FYI, if you do put something in this box, do that initial sync, it might fail when you do that. So just leave it empty for the first sync and then we'll come back in and customize it. So I'm going to close that and I'm going to come back here and I'm going to make one more change. So my base folder where I'm going to put my Readwise documents is not a Readwise folder in my root vault. It's actually going to be, it's back at the top of this document. It's going to be in my Salon folder in that subfolder called Readwise. Now, you could put it wherever you want it in your vault, but you will need to actually customize that if you want to do that. I'm going to resync deleted files just because I have been deleting files a bunch in Readwise, and I do always prefer that option. And I think that is everything. So with that, we're going to initiate sync. I'll pause the video, and then I'll come back and show you around. All right, everybody, we are back. I had a little bit of a machine fail, so I had to reboot. What you should see right here is a little green word synced with an exclamation mark, but because I had to reboot, that is not there. So our initial sync has run. Let me show you what that looks like. And just an FYI, you do not have to sit here with this screen open and just leave it open while it's syncing that first time. You can close this and go about your work in your vault. Depending on how many items you have in Readwise, I have about 15, really close to 1,500, like 14 something. It'll take a little while. I think mine took 10 minutes or so. Just don't work in that folder, so stay out of that folder while you're working. But when we come down here to my Salon folder and into Readwise, you can see it's created 4 folders, one for each of the different types of things that I have. And when we look here under articles, there are all my articles. And then when we look under books, there are all my books. And under podcasts, you can see my podcast, and then under tweets, all of my tweets are there. So all of that has been done, which is great. We're going to go ahead and make one more change to our sync, which is adding that synchronization history. Now you can do that in 2 ways. You can come down here and go to the plugins, go to that Readwise official. It was already selected there, and go back to customize. Or because I already had the browser window open, we can just drag the browser back in and we can add this now. So now we're going to come in here to our Notepad document where all of our information is saved, and we're going to come down here to sync notification. And you'll see in the instructions that I've created for you, it says, hey, turn this off the first time, don't include it. And now I'm going to bring this in, copy and paste. There we go. And so what that has changed is in the sync notification, you'll see a preview now. You'll see that document. So let's add a couple of additional highlights so that we can do that. The first one I'm going to add is I love the James Webb Telescope. I love seeing these new images, and I want to add this document to Reader. So I right-clicked in the document. I'm going to do Save Page to Reader. Now I'm going to come over here to Readwise, and it'll take a moment for that to come in. There it is. And let's go ahead and highlight. I want to highlight two different things. So I'm going to highlight this article from Corey Wilkes. Let's see. There we go. We'll do that one, and maybe this one. And I think I'm going to save this page for later. So I'll save link to reader. So I'll come back in here and finish this. You can see, I can tell I'm not done with it, because if I look here in Readwise's reader, it's got my reader progress bar. This blue and purple bar is not all the way to the right. So then let's go into the NASA document. And I like this one because as soon as it opens up here, it gives us this beautiful photo. So I'm going to, since I've got the blue bar here on the left, I can just hit T on my keyboard for tag. And my tag window comes up, and I can do, I think space is what I've got this on, James Webb Space Telescope. There we go. And so I can create that image, and then I can come down here, go tag, and James Webb Space Telescope. I'll just do the same thing. I'll probably come back and read this and add some more tags to it in a little while. But so we've added a couple of documents into our sync. And so now let's run our sync again, now that we have that sync notification in there. So I'm going to go ahead and come back to Readwise and just initiate a sync. Okay, and so that synchronization is completed. And so let's take a look at what has happened to our Readwise folder. So here in our Readwise folder, we now have this page called Readwise Syncs. And I'm going to open this in a new tab just by holding down my control key on my keyboard and clicking it with my mouse. And we'll see I've got these two new documents here. If I hover over them, you can sort of see what they look like. Oh, interesting. Oh, okay, I know why. Okay. We'll take a look at that in a second. That'll actually be a good example to show you that sometimes those linked notes are a problem. Okay, so I've got those two sync notes. You'll also see, because they're tied to the day, when I come to today's daily note and I come down to the bottom with my linked mentions, I can now see that there's a link between these two documents, as well as the link to today's Readwise syncs for that. So let's go back and look at that note that was causing the problem in the in my data view. So here's the data view query, and I'm guessing that it does not like the, what does it not like? Might be that comma. So let's take some of this formatting out of here. Go and see. And that updates all the links all the way around my vault. Huh, that still did not fix that. Let's just try doing this again. Oh, because I didn't take the comma out of here. There we go. There we go. That fixed it. I just needed to align that title now with that book. So you'll see it'll always link to the Readwise syncs for the day that it came in. That's just that'll just always create that link. So let's look at one other note from our vault, which is our book note for Everything in Its Place by Dan Charnas. Because I've played around with this one on a couple of the other syncs just so I would have something populated here. And when we look at this linked notes in your vault, you can see I've already created two sort of Zettelkasten type cards here in my vault that when I hover over them, I can see them. And they're now linked back to that specific document. And I can see all of those here on the Everything in Its Place page in my vault as well. So adding that data view query allows us to see that information right back there in my vault. So nice little way to tie things together in your vault as you're working with Readwise. I hope that was helpful, and if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comments box below. Otherwise, I will see you again soon on another video, and if you want to always get notified when you've got those videos, make sure you hit the subscribe and the notify button. And if you liked this video, be sure to hit like. Thanks, everybody. I will talk to you later.